Hi, everybody. Welcome to Christian Homestead. My name is Jared. I recently came across this book called Unpublished Revelations by Fred C. Collier, and it is full of gems. I, there's so many different things like this that I'm trying to go through to extract all the gems and missing information that I need for my spreadsheets. And there's a big one here that I've been looking for a long time. It happens to be on page 279. I wasn't even looking for it. I was looking for something else. And thank goodness I happen to see this part of the page down here. So this is how it goes. It has to do with Far West. This is a video on my other channel called Explore Church Sites. The middle monument at the top says Far West, a consecrated and holy land. That's one of the main features when you go see the Far West Temple site, is that like one of the most prominent features is the middle monument right there. And in other videos, I had read this. This is from President Alvin R. Dyer, counselor in the first presidency. And this is a supplement to the diaries of David O. McKay. You can find this on the University of Virginia's website for Mormon studies. And this entry is for June 7th, 1966. I'm just going to read the red highlighted parts. Okay, B. The prophet Joseph Smith contended with the devil face to face for some time upon the occasion of the power of evil menacing one of his children in the prophet's home just west of the temple site. Lucifer declared that Joseph had no right to be there, that this was his place, whereupon the prophet rebuked Satan in the name of the Lord, and he departed and did not touch the child again. Okay, later on, the sacredness of Far West Missouri is no doubt due to the understanding that the prophet Joseph Smith conveyed to the brethren at these early times that Adam-ondi-Ahman, the place to which Adam and Eve fled when cast out of the Garden of Eden, is where Adam erected an altar unto God and offered sacrifices. And that Far West was the spot where Cain killed Abel. That's it right there. I've done a fair amount of research, I think, into all the things that we talk about on this channel, including Far West, because I think that it has a bright future. I think we're going to see that temple. We may even see it before the second coming, if not, definitely in the millennium. But I'm just intrigued by Far West, especially now that I live here in Missouri. But I never knew who talked about this. The fact that Cain killed Abel at Far West. That's big news. Everybody in the world that's familiar with the Bible, I think, knows about the story of Cain and Abel. And most of the world believes that the Middle East is the Garden of Eden is somewhere in the Middle East, and that's probably where the story of Cain and Abel took place as well. I think about when I go to these church sites and I see people coming from out of town, there's so many of them that don't even realize that Jackson County, or specifically Independence, is where the Garden of Eden was. Much less the fact that Cain killed Abel at Far West. I don't know what people think when they go to Far West, if they understand the significance of it. Not just that Cain killed Abel, but all the other things that took place there. The monuments, talk about some of it, but there's a lot to Far West. But this is kind of a big one. I think that this is why we have currently a temple site at Far West. It's because of this, because it commemorates that first murder that took place in human history on Earth. So Alvin R. Dyer continues, this information tends to explain why the Lord declared Far West to be a holy consecrated place. That's why. And no doubt explains why Satan claimed that place as his own, as was here that he entered into a covenant with Cain, resulting in the death of Abel, the first of mortal existence upon this earth. Okay, so thanks to Unpublished Revelations by Fred C. Collier, I found at least one account that led to Alvin R. Dyer saying what he did. So this comes from an early church member named Reed Peck. You can see here he ended up leaving the church, and then he wrote an extended account of his Missouri experience. Um, President Dyer seemed to refer to others who also reported this. I don't know where those are yet, but at least we have this one from Reed Peck. We're going to go to the Church History Catalog. This document is called Reed Peck Letter, Quincy, Illinois, to Dear Friends, 1839, September 18th. And if you do a search right here in the search field, it's page number 11. But on the document itself, at the top right, it's page 6. And I just want to read this paragraph. Okay. In the latter part of March 1838, the Smith families, Sidney Rigdon, and many of their favorites arrived in Far West, one of the quote-unquote stakes of Zion, and found the church in prosperous circumstances. Oliver Cowdery, David Whitmer, and Lyman Johnson had preceded them, which placed in Caldwell County all the materials for an explosion. The presidency, Ver J. Smith, Hiram Smith, and Sidney Rigdon, believing that Caldwell County was too limited for the reception of the multitude of converts that would be flocking to Missouri, directed their attention to Daviess County, lying immediately north of Caldwell, in which they, with others of the society, made numerous claims on Congress land, selected a site, and laid out a city, the third quote-unquote stake of Zion. So remember, I'm pretty sure I have this right. So the first stake of Zion would be Jackson County, of course, before the Saints were expelled. So Jackson County, and then he just mentioned Far West, and now he's talking about a third stake, and he says, and they named it Adam Ondayaman, informing their followers that it was the place to which Adam fled when driven from the Garden of Eden in Jackson County, and that Far West was the spot where Cain killed Abel. So there it is. And I'm going to have to see if I can find those other sources. I'm sorry when my videos sound repetitive. I want to show you my work. I want to bring you along with me as I, fill in my spreadsheets, as I collect more and more sources, because I really want to know. I want to know everything I can about the Second Coming. I want to know everything I can find out about church history and doctrine. And I don't know if it resonates with you the same way it does with me, but learning these kind of things is just really interesting. And it's really satisfying to know where this idea comes from, or at least one source that points to this idea. Okay, so Far West was the spot where Cain killed Abel. Okay, now we have more to talk about aside from that. All right, continuing. Daviess County then contained, say, 400 families. Many of the Mormons left Caldwell and went into Daviess County, and an arrangement was made for all immigrants from the East to settle in that place, which in a short time made the Mormons their equal in strength with former citizens. About the 1st of June, part of the plat of the small town of DeWitt in Carroll County was bargained for, and 2 families by direction of the presidency moved to it, intending to make it the 4th stake of Zion. Okay, that's important for me because when I moved to Independence, I soon found out that there were many other church sites to see, aside from Adam Ondayaman, Far West, Liberty Jail, Richmond, and Independence. That's usually what people see, and that's usually what people think are here. But there's so much more. In one of those places I discovered was DeWitt. Okay, so let me just orient you here. So this is the Kansas City area, and this is Independence right here. Zoom out. Right here is Liberty. And then you go north and east a little bit, you'll get to far west. You go north a little bit more, and then you'll get to Adamandayaman. Okay. So the first, second, and third stakes. So it just mentioned that a fourth stake, or it was intended to be a fourth stake, was DeWitt. And DeWitt is over here east of Kansas City a little ways. When you go there, there is a historical marker that you can see. In fact, I have a video of this on my other channel called Explore Church Sites. And it's at the base of a flagpole. There's like this I think it's called like a country club or clubhouse or something like that. It's in the center of this. It's just a very small town. But at the base of the flagpole, they have this plaque titled "The Mormons," and it talks about the fact that the church started to settle here, but they weren't there for very long before they were kicked out. And I recently found out, I guess it was last year, I found out as I was looking through Family Search that I have an ancestor that tried to settle in DeWitt. And so it just makes this place even more special to me. But this was going to be a fourth stake of Zion. So what I've done is the new quote that we just read from Peck, I've added it to a number of places. I've added it to far west, which is row 211. I made a new row for DeWitt, and I added it to other places too, like Garden of Eden, stuff like that. Okay. Now, what's interesting is if we go to what's currently row 589, I want to show you something that Alvin R. Dyer said. This is in the David O. McKay diaries. The date is October 6th, 1969. And this was the time when the church was getting serious about purchasing lands in Missouri and, beautifying and building up some of these places. Okay, we're just going to go to the end here. He says, I explained to the brethren present that this work would need to go forward slowly, but yet methodically, to accomplish the purpose of obtaining properties in the Missouri area centered around four particular areas where land had been consecrated and dedicated for the building of temples and a city of Zion. This included the following locations: Independence, Missouri, Jackson County; Far West, Missouri, Caldwell County; Adamandayaman, Davies County; and the fourth location being approximately on the border of Caldwell and Davies counties in a direct line between Adamandayaman and Far West, where the prophet had dedicated the land to be a city of the Zion of God. So this is not DeWitt. This is yet another city, and this is a city that, it didn't even start at all. DeWitt did. You did have people that moved to DeWitt, but this city that's being referred to between Far West and Adamandayaman never even really got started. And it's called the city of Seth. Again, on my other channel called Explore Church Sites, I went to the approximate location as described by the book Sacred Places, Missouri by Lamar C. Barrett. And there's nothing to see there. There's no historical markers, monuments, or signs or anything. But this is the general location. And let me just show you on the map. So we're zooming out from DeWitt. We're going to go up north. Again, here's Far West right here. You go north and east a little bit, and approximately right here is the city of Seth. And then if you continue north into the east, there's Adamandayaman. So about halfway. It's almost exactly halfway, just eyeballing it. So that's where it is. Okay, so it seems like when we're talking about stakes, opposed to just like small settlements, it seems that there were 5 stakes. Independence, or you could refer to it as Jackson County. So Independence, Far West, City of Seth, Adamandayaman, and DeWitt. So that's the best that I know right now. Now, what's really interesting about the city of Seth is that it's called Seth. And we just covered the fact that far west is where Cain killed Abel. And as far as I know, or I guess I would assume that it's called the city of Seth, probably because it has something to do with Seth. After Abel was killed, the birthright went to Seth. Um, he's I guess he would have been the next in line. The scriptures say that he looked exactly like Adam, and essentially he's all of our common ancestor, just like Adam is. But Seth, and I don't know why it's called that. I don't know if this is where Seth lived. Maybe he was born there. Maybe maybe this is where he died. Who knows? But I'm pretty sure it has something to do with that. The first time, I think this is the first time I ever learned about the city of Seth. I was going through the church news archives and I came across this article, This Week in Church History, the 30th of August, 2003. President Spencer W. Kimball, accompanied by his wife Camilla, returned to the sites of many historic events in church history with a visit to Missouri, September 1st through 3rd, according to the September 9th, 1978 Church News. The article reported, quote, with pages of history linking the past to the present, President and Sister Kimball and their party visited the temple site in far west Missouri, the hills and valleys of Adamonte-Ammon, the temple block in Independence, Missouri, and the jail in Liberty. An added bonus was visiting the area believed to have been the location of the city of Seth, designated by the prophet Joseph Smith as a place of refuge for the saints. And then that's it. It doesn't explain anything about it. It's just like, oh yeah, they went to the city of Seth. And it's interesting because on that trip, I guess they didn't go to Richmond, which I would say is one of the main sites because this is where Oliver Cowdery and David Whitmer are buried in the Pioneer Cemetery. Sorry. You have all, oh, I guess I don't have a picture. Oliver Cowdery is buried here, as well as I think it's Jacob Whitmer, who is one of the 8 witnesses. So one of the 3 witnesses, one of the 8 witnesses. And then on the other side of town, in the Richmond Cemetery, that's where you have David Whitmer's gravesite. There are a few other places, for example, the site where Joseph Smith was in jail. So basically, when Joseph Smith was arrested, they took him first to Jackson County. And then after that, he came to Richmond and he was jailed right here. And there's an empty lot with a white picket fence. And this is where he rebuked the guards. After that, he went to Liberty. After that, he went up to the Gallatin area. And then from there, there was going to be a change of venue to Columbia. But he was allowed to escape here at in a town that's, I don't know if the town existed at that time, but a town called Rothville, Missouri. And there's a historical marker there. So President Kimball, it's just interesting that he didn't go to Richmond, but he went to the city of Seth. And maybe that makes sense. Maybe it's just because it's kind of like on the way. Maybe that's why they stopped by there. But let's go back to my spreadsheet. I just want to cover a couple other things about the city of Seth. So you have a mention of it in History of the Church. It just, it describes the location, but it doesn't give the name of the city. This is another one of those things where it's like, okay, where do we find the name Seth? Where did that come from aside from church news? I want to find like a primary document of somebody who was alive at the time to have heard that. So it's not mentioned here, but it is alluded to. And somehow or another, I found this. You can find this in BYU Studies, volume 28, page 22. A letter from Albert Perry Rockwood to Sister Vos, and he was of the presidency of the 70. 15th of October, 1838, Monday. The brethren have all returned from Witt. The mob is now assembling again in Daviess County. They have sworn in their wrath that every Mormon shall leave the county. Adam and Seth are one stake of Zion and will not be so easily surrendered. Seth is 12 miles from this place. So in this, it's referred to not as a separate stake, but the same with Adam. So that's where there's like maybe a little bit of confusion for me. I guess if we go back to what Alvin R. Dyer said, oh my gosh, where is it? Was it in this one? No. Sorry, no, we got to go. Okay, let's go here. If we go to what Alvin R. Dyer said, he just said land that had been consecrated and dedicated for the building of temples in a city of Zion. Back in those days, a city of Zion and a stake are essentially the same thing. So I do think that ultimately they were like 5 separate stakes. Maybe the city of Seth was initially going to be part of the Adam stake, but I'm sure that if they had actually built it, I'm sure it would have separated. And Alvin R. Dyer seems to suggest that a temple would have been built in Seth. I'm sure that one would have been built in DeWitt, frankly. But anyway, I think that's all that I have. Yeah. So right now, the only source that I have that points to the fact that it was named Seth is this letter from Albert Perry Rockwood. But there you have it. So, I'm like I said, I'm trying to be as thorough as possible. I want to find where all these different beliefs come from, whether it has to do with Missouri, whether it has to do with the Second Coming. You need to go to the source. Sometimes it's not possible. Sometimes you have to rely on other documents when you can't go to the primary source, but you want to try and go to the source, and that's what I'm trying to do. I hope you enjoy doing this with me. I hope you like learning about these things, but that's all that I have for this one. I'll talk to you guys later.